is to bleed them. A lot of times when you go into stores and you see fish like maybe rock cod or halibut that's in the fish market, it'll have a pinkish color to it. And it doesn't have to have that because commercial fishermen aren't going to bleed the fish. They're not going to sit there, take all that extra time to bleed every fish so that you can have fish that doesn't have blood in it. So the best thing to do is to cut the gills, all at the live, and bleed these fish out alive. I like to use a pair of gardening shears. They're strong, they'll get through. If you're talking about rock cod or something, a pair of scissors will work fine, but when you get into fish like this or much bigger fish, the gills are pretty tough, and the sharper the cut that you make, the less coagulation of the blood that stops the bleeding will get to it. So what I like to do is when I get it aboard, right away, of course, you have to put a tag on the fish now. So everybody gets 3 tags a year if you have a sturgeon license, and you need to make sure you get that tag on there immediately so you don't get in trouble with Mr. Fish and Game.
I hear that.
I like to cut it, and I cut each gill individually on each side. It's a nice sharp cut. I like to leave it in the boat for a little bit. After about 5 minutes of it bleeding, I take a hose. If you don't have a hose, you can simply just use a bucket, put your hand in there. But I like to break up the coagulation, try to let that blood flow out of it so it doesn't get stopped up in there. And then I just simply put a rope on it, throw it over the side, and let it bleed out in the water so I'm not getting a bunch of blood in the boat. And as Keith was saying, usually these fish move in pots. So when you have one on, a lot of times you'll see guys, you get a fish on, people want to pull their rod out. Should I get my rod out of the water? You know, it's like, not on my boat. I want those rods in the water, and when the fish are there, that's when we want them in the water. So we want to get this fish over the side and get back to fishing. See if we can put another fish on it. So once you blend that fish, then when you go to fillet it, the meat should be white. The thing that's really important too is when you freeze fish, the reason that fish goes bad usually is the blood, okay? And also, the blood can also have more toxins in it than the meat will have without blood. So it's really important to bleed your fish well, and I suggest any type of fish you catch will taste better and will freeze longer and better if you bleed it out. So what I'm going to simply do is, actually I'm going to talk to you about these knives. I got 2 types of knives here. Both of them are Dexter Russell knives. Santa Safe, I think, is the same company, but these knives are about $20 a piece, and they're very soft steel, as opposed to very expensive knives. Sometimes you'll see knives that are $100 or more. Forstner makes some. They're fantastic knives, and if you're a chef or a butcher and you know how to sharpen those knives, they're probably the best knives in the world. The problem is that once they go dull, you need like a grinder, or you need to really know what you're doing with like a triple stone to get those sharp again. So you can have a $100 knife, that doesn't mean it's going to be sharp. These softer steel knives are very easy to sharpen, and they go dull fast, but you can simply sharpen them quickly with any kind of sharpener, and they will sharpen nice and sharp. So this is a thinner knife. I use this to fillet the fish off the skin. When I'm first working on getting it from the bone, I use a little thicker knife, and that way you have less chance of cutting your finger off. You really should always wear a fillet glove, okay? Especially if you don't know what you're doing, wear a fillet glove on your hand, and that also will help you from going to the hospital. There's nothing worse than having a long day of fishing. I remember one time I was out Albacore fishing, and I was about a 22-hour trip. And I had come in, and I was cutting fish, and I was trying to hurry, and I was down to the last fish, and I put a really big gash in my hand, and you know, then you got to go to the hospital. You know how that is, in the emergency room for hours. That's no fun. So first thing I'm going to do is right behind this fin, I'm just going to make a cut right up through here, and I'm going to go right under these diamonds. There's 2 dots, lines that go up and down this, and that's kind of a good guideline. I'm just going to basically cut these diamonds off all the way up and expose the back side of the bone. So, now on the top of this fish, as you see, this yellow here, that's the fat, and this red is part of the bloodline. Like I say, these fish are bottom feeders. We do have heavy metals in the bay. They don't spend all their life in the bay, but if you can stay away from eating the bloodline and eating the bellies of these fish, it's going to be a lot healthier for you, okay? one thing about cutting fish up, I'm going to just take these paper towels out. I put these down so that we wouldn't have blood going all over. When you cut the fish, one important thing is move around. You don't have to be in one spot. If you don't want to cut yourself, don't be reaching or be in a really bad position. Just simply move the fish around the way you want to so that you can get a really nice angle on it. So if you see on this fish, there's kind of a red line that goes straight down here and then it goes into this fat line. That's right on top of the backbone here. And what I do is I take my knife and I simply start to cut right down on that line, straight down. Nice and easy. I'm not trying to use a bunch of muscle. And I simply cut straight down there and start to get a little line going. As I do that, I keep going again. And then once you get in here, you're going to feel the backbone. Okay? And what I want to do is I want to simply fillet this meat right off of the backbone. So now, up here I can feel where that is. And I'm going to simply go down here and try to separate this from the backbone and not lose a lot of meat. Well, I can now use the backbone as a guide, and it makes it nice and easy to go right down on that backbone. So, on each side, we're going to separate that from the backbone. Okay, and now what I do is I come up here on the head of the fish, and I cut down through, and you know, these diamonds are sharp, your knife won't go through those, so you kind of go around the diamond and simply cut down through the fish, and then I'm just going to cut that fish off of there. Now I'm going to turn it around again, a lot of turning, and I'm going to do that to the other side here. And simply cut that down. Once again, turning the fish, good angle, good angle. Okay, so now I have the two fillets here. What I like to do down on this bottom part is to actually turn the fish on its side, poke this through, right off the tail section here. Okay, so basically I have two fillets, one on each side, and all the guts and stomach on the inside. Okay, I'm going to cut this right out of there. I'm going to come up here to where the head is, and I'm going to cut this fillet right away from the fish. And I got one side fillet right there. Okay, I'm going to do that to the other side.
So how did you know where to make that cut at?
Well, this right here. You'll see some bones right here and a bloodline, and they come in at an angle. So I just cut below the bones and kind of use them as a guide to cut through. So I'm going to cut this off there, and now I'm going to have two fillets like that. And then this part of the fish, we don't need. This belly meat down here, like I say, that's where most of the fat is, and that's the part you really don't want to eat. And there goes your fish. Now we're down to two fillets. What I like to do is use a thinner knife to fillet this off the skin. I'm going to show you a little trick, and this works with all fish. Okay, not just sturgeon. But when we cut down, we slowly make a cut right here on the tail section. And then, one trick that you can do is you can poke, I'm going to use the sharper, bigger knife. You can cut a little hole right here in the end of the fish. And what that does, it gives you a little handle. Put your thumb through and pull on it. You don't want to pull, you push with your knife. What you simply want to do is move your knife back and forth and pull the fish. And if you just simply lay your knife down flat and pull the fish, then what you do is you simply get that skin off of there pretty clean, and on the back side, looks pretty good, huh folks?
Yeah, very good.
The great part about this is, I've seen guys at the fish cleaning station taking, way too much time to do this stuff, but simply, right after doing that, I can simply just cut it like this and have nice portions, and there you go. There's your sturgeon. So, does anybody have any questions? When you see this fat line in here, there's a little fat line. You see this yellow line in there? I just simply carefully trim this stuff off. This is where having a sharp knife is important. But if you could just trim some of that fat out of there carefully. So, just take that right out of there and try to get it as clean as I can possibly get it before we cook it.